Hi, Ruben Saltzman with Structure Tech Home Inspections here. Today's topic is fall maintenance for Minnesota homeowners. Now, of course, this list doesn't have to apply just to Minnesota homeowners. This could really apply to anybody who lives in a cold climate and wants to get their house ready for the winter. So I've got a big list here. I'm going to power through all this. Priority A1 when wintertime comes is make sure that you don't have water freeze. Now, if you got outside faucets at your home, you need to make sure that you've winterized them properly. The first thing to do there is to disconnect any garden hoses. If you leave a garden hose attached, the water inside that hose can freeze and burst your pipe. That's bad news. So disconnect any garden hoses. And then second, whether you have a frost-free faucet or not, it's a good idea to drain the water out of those faucets. Now, I used to tell people, if you think that you have a frost-free faucet, well, I used to say, if I see this on the outside of the house, it's a frost-free faucet. If you have a handle that goes straight like this. If it's a handle that is crooked, it curves down like this at a 45, and then you got the spout here, the shutoff is going to be right here. This is definitely not a frost-free faucet. But if you got something like this with a big long stem, the idea is when I shut this off, the valve is being shut here, way back inside the frost line, and this will never freeze and burst, provided it's installed properly, provided it's pitched downwards like this, so that when the water is shut off, water is going to drain out. Now if it's pitched backwards, of course, you shut the water off, all the water is just going to sit in here. That doesn't help you. That might as well not be a frost-free. So anytime I would see this on the outside of a house, I'd tell my clients, yeah, it's a frost-free faucet. Until I had a home inspector in another part of the country tell me about these wicked devices, these evil little devices made by, I don't even need to say, it's Woodford Model 101. There's nothing wrong with the manufacturer, really. They make these products, but it looks exactly like a frost-free faucet, but it's not frost-free. I mean, everything that you can see at the outside, even when I look up inside here, everything, it's identical on the surface, but it's not frost-free. The end of the faucet is right here. So, of course, the next thought would be, well, why would anybody install these in Minnesota? That's not going to happen because you need to install a frost-free faucet in our cold climate. Well, if you have a walkout basement, it's pretty tough to put a frost-free faucet on that outside wall because you have to have this big long stem extending into the basement, into the finished space. But you know what? I inspected a new construction home. I think it was in New Brighton just a week or two ago, and I saw this exact same faucet installed on a new construction home at the rim space in a place where a traditional frost-free faucet very well could have been installed. They used one of those. So all bets are off. They're here, and you got to look out for them. So at any rate, unless you're positive that you have a properly installed frost-free faucet, you should winterize your faucets. And that's done by going to the shutoff valve inside the home, and I don't know where your valve is. It's probably going to be above the water meter or somewhere close to the outside wall by the faucet. You need to find that valve, shut the valve off, go to the faucet at the outside, open the faucet up, and then come back inside and open a little bleeder cap that should be on that same valve that you shut off before. And then for the faucet at the outside, whether you leave it open or not all winter long, it really doesn't make any difference. Do whatever you prefer. I prefer to just leave it open. That way I lessen the chance of something bursting from pressure. So, okay, that was a little tangent. Gosh, I'm going to make this one video just on water, and I'll do another video on everything else. This is going to be a two-part video type of deal. So, drain your faucets. Another one is if you have a pond pump in your backyard. You got a really fancy backyard, you got a pond pump out there. You surely know this, but you need to take that pond pump out of there. You'll destroy it. You can't leave it in your garage where it's going to freeze. You need to put it down in your basement or somewhere where it's going to stay warm. And according to one of the inspectors on my team, Nick Pickert, who used to be a landscape guy, he says it's a good idea to take those pumps and put them in a 5-gallon bucket filled with water to help prevent the seals from drying out. Sounds good to me. So that's the same advice that I give. And then, let's see, if you have a utility sink in your garage, you need to winterize that too. You need to drain any of the water that goes to those faucets. Hopefully you know where your inside shutoff valves are. You should have some valves go into those pipes inside the home, shut the water off, go to the faucet at the outside, drain the water out of there, and then leave it that way. And then of course you're going to have a trap at that sink. If the trap is inside the house, which is not common, but it could happen, if the trap is inside the house, you don't need to do anything. Now if the trap is underneath the sink, inside the garage, which is what you typically have, you got to do something with the water in that trap. And you don't want sewer gas coming in. So my advice would be to get some RV antifreeze, pour the antifreeze into that trap. RV antifreeze will not freeze, as the name implies, and it's not going to harm your drains. It's fine for the environment. And RV antifreeze is cheap too. It's you buy it by the gallon. So pick up some of that, winterize your garage utility sink, and then finally, if you have a sprinkler system, or well, more accurately, I should say a lawn irrigation system, if you have one of those, you need to get the system blown out. Hire a company to come and do it. I suppose you could try doing it yourself if you rent a big compressor. I have no idea what's involved in that, so I can't give any advice there. I guess some people do it themselves, but I found companies that do it for like 40, 50 bucks. Doesn't seem like that big of an expense. So hire somebody to make sure your irrigation system is blown out. And then finally, just one thing that I wanted to cover on that same topic is back in January of 2016, Minnesota adopted a new plumbing code. And part of that code says that anytime you have a backflow prevention device for your lawn sprinkler system, it needs to be field testable, and it needs to be tested annually. So then I started hearing about sprinkler blowout companies telling their clients that they need to upgrade their backflow preventer and it needs to be tested annually. And if it can't be tested, code says you now need to have it replaced. And that's just a bunch of hooey. There's no truth in that at all. This code applies to new installations, not existing installations. So if you've had a system there forever and you have a sprinkler company trying to tell you they need to upgrade this and they need to do annual testing, well, I don't know how to say this nicely. Maybe just ask them for the code section, or maybe talk to somebody else. That might be a good idea. All right, so I went really long in talking about winterizing your faucets. This is going to have to be a two-part video. This includes part 1. Thanks for watching.